but thank you for joining us. If this is your first one, you might not know who I am. So I'm Catherine Wilton, one of the Deputy Directors in the Personalised Care Group in NHS England and Improvement. And we've got a great team here supporting you today for this masterclass, and hopefully it will be really helpful and useful for you. I'm going to hand over to Christy today, who is my co-host.
Hi everybody. Catherine, can you hear me okay? Yeah, good. Oh, hello everybody. I'm so sorry not to be able to see you all, but I can see that the numbers are climbing, and at the moment there are 85 of you. So hello. I have had a scroll through the names, and it's lovely to be with so many people that we recognise. If you're new, welcome. Good that you're all loving the music, as Catherine said. That's wonderful. So I'm Christy Adams, and I'm a coach and a tutor on the programme. And today I'm co-hosting alongside Catherine, and let me just talk you through who we've got joining us. We've got a fabulous panel. We've got Emma Clark, we've got Clinton Farquharson and Dr. Tarima Matin. So you'll be hearing from them in a bit. We've got Rosie and Molly, so you'll probably recognise Rosie and Molly now. So Rosie's hosting the kind of overall Zoom for us today, and we've got DJ Molly on music and slides. We've got Lindsay and Julie who are going to be monitoring the chat, so we'll be handing over to them to tell us what's going on in there. We've got Simon, we've got Lauren, and we've got Paul, who are also keeping an eye on the chat for us and will respond to anything that needs responding to. We've got Gaynor, who's our very important timekeeper. We've got John, we've got Andy, we've got Kate, and we've got Anna, and they're all going to be in rooms with you later on when we're going to breakouts. So sit back, relax, get yourselves comfortable, and I have to say you're in for a bit of a treat this afternoon. Thanks, Molly. So it would be really good, as we always do, to start off by inviting you to tell us your thoughts about some things. So firstly, it would be great, Molly, if we can have the first question up, to hear from you about what does leadership for wellbeing, equality and inclusion mean to you? So if you could just take a moment to digest that question, and let's get some conversation going in the chat box. And Julie and Lindsay, I'll ask you in a moment to just tell us what's going on in there. So do feel free to type away. Don't worry about spelling mistakes. It's absolutely fine. Hello, Jenny. I can see a message from you there that's come through in the chat. Nice to be with you today. So I can see that you've said leaders model what they value. Absolutely. You'll be hearing a lot about that as we go through the session today. What else have we got coming through, Julie and Lindsay?
So we've got your approach to practice is led by example, walking the talk, being a role model, leading by, really leading by example, having a vision, sharing the vision, including your team, and again, role models. So role models coming through, knowing what you're talking about and believing in it. That's a good one. Thanks, Mags.
Getting obstacles out of the way, creating a sense of belonging. Oh, challenging and being brave. I like that one, Jenny.
Yeah, lots in there about role modeling. Very interesting. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. And Laura's saying a good coaching approach. Well, as a coach, Laura, I can agree more. And Ram's saying co-production. Absolutely. Okay. Let's move on to the next question, please. So it's a bit longer, this one. So take your time to make sense of this for yourself. I'll read it out to you. So if personalised care means having choice and control over your life and an integrated, holistic approach to care and support, how does that apply to me and others in the workforce? So take a moment, connect with that question, and let's see what comes through in the chat. I can see that Deborah's put something in there. So true, Deborah, isn't it, that sometimes we don't think we're having an effect, and it's not until later on that the impact is shown and you can see the significance of it. So I think, as you said, don't lose faith and stick with it. Okay. So how does that apply to you and others in the workforce? What have we got coming through, Lindsay and Julie?
We've got a lot coming through about respect and choice. Emma's valuing people's individuals and being mindful of their needs and preferences. And making sure that no one is left behind. And listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, there seems to be an awful lot of listening and respecting coming through in most of the in most of the responses to that question, and active listening, not just listening. So Chantel's just put removing the hierarchy, everybody matters, and whether individual preferences, that's vital. Thinking outside the box, be open to think the unthinkable.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And I'm sure that more things will come through. In the interest of time, I shall move us on, though. Thank you for participating in that. Thanks, Molly. Okay, so this is just a brief reminder. We've done this every time that we've come together. So a reminder of the journey and what we've got available to you. So we're now, can you believe it, in module 4. So this is the one around leadership for wellbeing, equality and inclusion. So we've looked at an introduction to leadership in personalised care. We've looked at personalised care in a complex system, collaborative leadership, and there's all sorts available for you on our YouTube channel. So please do, in your own time, take a look and dip in and out of what's useful to you. You know, sometimes, as we just said, you know, it's not until later on that things become relevant. So do pick and choose and yeah, enjoy. We've also got the course booklets for you as well. So there's, for those of you that are more wanting to read than listen and watch, then you can go deeper into your understanding through those course booklets as well. Lovely, thank you so much. Okay, so you'll recognise this slide. We've done this every time, haven't we? Nevertheless, it is really important that we just all connect and contract with each other. So the ground rules and the consent then. So we are recording this main session, but we're not recording the group discussion. So that's the same as we've done previously. We have a shared responsibility, don't we, for each other's psychological safety and learning, and obviously this includes respecting confidentiality. So what we mean by this is that you are able to speak up today with your ideas, your questions, your concerns or your mistakes, and you will be listened to without being judged. Just please, as you have been so respectfully throughout this whole programme, be aware of the airspace in the breakout rooms. I can see lots of people consenting in the chat box, but we haven't got to the end yet. You're eager beavers. You know the drill by now, don't you? Okay, we're using the chat for all our communication, so we've already done that today. Please don't worry about spelling mistakes, everybody. Just type away. We'll make sense of what you're saying. The chat is being monitored, so if you need any support, please pop your questions in there. Any tech issues at all, we've got a whole team on hand to help you. Please do bear with us. We do have tech issues. We're only human, and we've had a few strange gremlins this afternoon. So stick with us, and we'll work through it all together, won't we? We've got there, you get out what you put in, and as I say every time, that's a bit like life, isn't it? So please do get involved in the chat, keep your cameras on in group discussions, and please do show others that you are listening and that you're attentive. And just a reminder that if you've got your head down, you may be listening, but it doesn't appear that you are. So please do just show up for yourself and for others today. We've got there Awareness is your leadership superpower. We like this one, don't we? And leadership development starts with you. So what we mean by that is that the more you understand about what you feel or what you think and what's making you feel or think that way, and the more in touch you are with your emotional, physical, mental state, the better that you are as a leader, because you're then more able to connect and empathize with people. So, you know, just show up and be how you are today. And show all those lovely leadership qualities when you're in conversations in the breakout rooms. Please do stay for the whole session. It's such a privilege to have you with us, and we are all on this journey together, and you'll get the benefits from it if you can just protect this hour and a half that we've got that's so precious together. Okay, so to end, can you give consent please in the chat box to everything I've run through? Loads of you are ahead of the game today. Thank you so much for doing that. Thanks, Molly. Okay, so this is our agenda for today. So we've done some welcome and introductions. We're going to have a slightly different format today because what you're going to be observing is a conversation. So we've got a conversation with Dr. Tarima Matin, we've got Clinton, and we've got Emma as well. So yeah, hopefully it will feel like you're just in the room participating in that conversation. Then we're going to go into some group discussions, and so we're going to reflect on what we've heard and think about what that means for us as leaders, and then we'll come back, regroup, and have some final words together, and we are going to finish by 4:30. Is there anything in the chat that I need to know about? Rosie, Molly, anyone else before I hand over to Catherine?
No, it's
No.
all looking good. Lots of consents.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Right, Catherine, I'm going to hand over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Christy. So I'm delighted to introduce our panel today. So we've got Emma Clark. So Emma is Interim Chief Executive at Weston Park Cancer Charity in Sheffield, and she's actually an alumni of our national programme. So a very dear friend and colleague, and really delighted that Emma's here today to talk to you. We've got Dr. Tarima Matin. So Trina is a consultant radiologist and national clinical advisor at Health Education England. And you might have noticed Tarima featured in our course booklet. I think it was the last one, because we featured her document that she co-wrote on future doctors. So Tarima's been looking at how we need to equip doctors for the future with the skills and attributes that everyone wants in order to create the NHS and that everybody wants, which is absolutely fantastic. And Clinton Farquharson. So Clinton, also known Clinton for a long time. He's chair of the Think Local at Personal Partnership, which is a social care partnership aimed at promoting personalised care, or personalisation as it's called in social care circles. And he's been a co-conspirator with us for many years. He was actually a founder member of our national programme about 8 or 9 years ago. And Clinton has an MBE for services to disabled people in the West Midlands. So thank you very much. Let's take the slides down. Everyone can say hello, and we're going to have about half an hour conversation with the panel. So welcome you three. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi.
So don't forget to unmute yourself. You have the power now, but Rosie's made you co-host. So like she said, don't press any buttons. I've been given that instruction as well, so don't worry. But yeah, delighted that you can join us. So I've got a series of questions, but you know, we'll just have this as a conversation. And when we were thinking about this module, we were thinking about personalised care being about the people we serve. So making sure that people, communities have choice and control, that we co-produce with people, that we're looking at better outcomes, and absolutely externally focused, wanting to create a change and a real difference. But there's such a link for me between personalised care and actually what it means to be a leader in general. And I just wondered about what personalised leadership means to you, and particularly in terms of promoting well-being, equality and inclusion. So who would like to start?
I'm happy to give it a go. Thanks, Catherine. Firstly, thank you ever so much for the invite. It is really, really lovely to be here and seeing all of those messages come up through on the chat. I was sat here thinking, oh my word, I'm not sure that I'm the right person to be speaking. It feels like we've got lots of experts in this session, in this room. So having thought about we talked about these questions at the sort of back end of last week, and I've been pondering over them. And for me, if we believe in personalised care, if we believe in these reciprocal, respectful relationships, you know, meeting one another as equals, then for me as leaders, we've got to create the conditions for that. So, you know, I'm a keen but quite a rubbish gardener, and we are not going to have, you know, the flower is not going to bloom if we don't create the right conditions for it. And as I say, for me, that is where we can really step into our own as leaders. And I was having to think about the lovely Maya Angelou quote, in terms of people will forget what you said and they'll forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And that kind of sticks with me, because I think that we have a real duty actually to be welcoming, to be inclusive, and creating those conditions is incumbent on us, because people were talking earlier about role modeling, but actually people don't see that in us as leaders. Then how do they know how, you know, to behave? How do they know the tone that's set? So so those are all the things that came to mind for me. So, you know, creating those right conditions and being that role model that people were describing earlier.
Oh, thank you so much. Tarima, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more actually, Emma, with this idea about how you need to model those leadership values. So for me, personalized leadership is really about celebrating diversity. So we really need to embrace diversity and, as you say, create the conditions for inclusion so that that becomes the norm. And actually, I kind of reflect on this panel, and I have to commend you, Catherine, for convening such a great panel, because, you know, we reflect diversity. And I think, you know, although we're seeing that more and more, traditionally, that's not what you normally see kind of through panels in health and care. And I think my American colleagues kind of quote, it's the stale, male, pale, and Yale. And actually we need to, you know, try and in order to break away from that, we have to model those leadership values and embrace that diversity.
Absolutely, yeah. Clinton.
For me, personalised leadership is you go first. There's my dad always used to say to us as kids, you go first. So for me, where I sit here today, I'm grateful for the diversity of my heritage. I'm aware that my parents' dreams live on in my precious daughter and my nieces and nephews, and that diversity is all of us, all of our lived experience, and that's of people, staff, and it's the practice that we create. So it is creating the environment that leads to the culture. But the easy part, I think, is listening and hearing from many voices, so no one is left behind for me.
We've had that phrase twice now, and it makes me think of Lilo and Stitch, when he says Ohanu means nobody gets left behind. And I love that. It's an important kind of mantra to carry along. I've got a colleague who says that you can learn most of what you know from Disney films as well. So I also need to let it go. But diversity, yeah, it's, getting back to more to Sarah's point, there's lots of evidence that diverse teams make better decisions. Michael West talked about this last time, that actually more diverse companies do better on the FTSE 100. So if diversity is crucial for like really high performance and so that we can lead and really achieve a lot, what do we need to do to include more people and hear more people? What's our role as leaders? Clinton, do you want to go first?
From my starting point, we need to first understand the existence of inequalities that we have today. And I believe the inequalities that we have today are designed, and it's a result of a set of decisions that were made about our society and the priorities and resources. So if we just think about that, just as it was designed, we can redesign it so it works for everyone. So for me, but it needs different thinking, and different thoughts. There is a quote about diversity. They say great minds think unalike.
Absolutely. That's brilliant, Clinton. Thank you. Emma, have you got any great examples of this, about how you've been able to make this work?
Yeah, so so my starting point is that everyone's got something valuable to bring, and if we believe that, and we go from that starting position, like Clinton said, we can then draw on and hear that diversity of thinking. So I've walked down so many corridors, generally in council buildings, but certainly in NHS buildings as well, where the great and the good, the paintings of them, and then the photographs of them are on the walls. And typically, it's white middle-aged men, and all I ever think to myself is, gosh, those meetings must have been boring. And I guess so for me, there's a multitude of different ways to hear from people. I've been involved in research projects where people with lived experiences led that, come up with the research questions and undertaken interviews and led that, that piece of research. I've worked alongside people with lived experience who are part of our committees or on boards, in real key decision-making positions. And in some instances, I have facilitated that to make sure that those people are, in those places, and supported them to be part of those groups. I think that there's ways in which we can, as leaders, can act as springboards. Investing maybe a little bit of seed funding, or facilitating and encouraging, mutual aid or peer group support. In a previous organisation, I led what we described as consultancy work, and every time I said that phrase, it reminded me of sort of IBM or someone, with consultants who go in really corporate environments. And what actually we did was, we were with people with lived experience of that particular, aspect of social care. They were the consultants. They were the people going in and saying, this is what works, this is really what doesn't, and this is the way we can help you think differently. So as I said, there's just a real multitude of ways of not just hearing different voices, but having different voices involved in, and different people involved in a whole variety of ways that, as I say, coming back to those photographs and those oil paintings on the wall, just makes life a lot more interesting. So, if you don't want dull meetings and you don't want, a boring work life, then get, more people, different people involved.
I love that, Emma. So there can be fun in this as well, if anyone needs any other motivation. Tarima, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I completely agree with the fun aspect. I also have to just emphasize, the evidence. So it is fact that if you have diverse teams, you have better outcomes. It is fact that if you kind of, support and protect the well-being of your workforce, you deliver better outcomes. And in terms of FTSE 100, you would be a bit, higher on the FTSE 100. And I've experienced this firsthand. So if I think about the teams where we've really flourished, where I think, oh yeah, we've really made a significant impact on society, it's always been where the team has been made up of people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different lived experiences, different perspectives. And the reason, I think, is because that drives curiosity. It also drives kind of challenge. So you're always critiquing, there's always a different view, and that helps just essentially for you to excel. But I have to agree with Clinton's point that it just doesn't happen by chance. And so I think there is a responsibility if you're a leader. You've actively got to access that diversity of thought. So you've constantly got to be thinking, okay, how do I push the boundaries or the kind of traditional boundaries of teams so that I'm collaborating with different people, I'm working with different disciplines, you know, across different professions. And for me, a really good example, so I'm a radiologist, I have a really good keen interest in technology and digital. And if I think about, you know, who are the people that I want to collaborate or work with, it's, you know, it is clinicians, but actually it's engineers, it's computer scientists. If I think about patients, it's, you know, patient entrepreneurs, people who are in, you know, leading a social movement like #WeAreNotWaiting. And then if I think about, okay, how do I bring the human touch or the compassion to that? Maybe I want to work with someone in humanities and, you know, someone from a kind of anthropology background. So it's that, I think, innovative thinking of, you know, how can I constantly kind of push the boundaries on who I'm working with.
Great, that's really interesting examples. Yeah, sorry, Clinton, did you want to come in then?
Yeah, just on that, the thought I've got about leaders, they need to recognise, because of the pandemic, they need to recognise racism exists. And to tackle racism, we must get past our shame and discomfort in discussing this issue. That's one of the things that I've picked up. But also, I don't aim to provoke feelings of guilt or helplessness, but we want to reach out to allies, and you are allies out there to tackle the dangerous in healthcare and society. So, you know, your allyship is really important as leaders.
Yeah. Did you say, what did you say then, Clinton? Dangerous paternalism, did you say?
No, it's the dangers of the pandemic.
Oh, right, yeah. I thought what you were saying, it was kind of a mishearing, but that kind of like that dangerous knowing you know best, you know, that you know best for everybody, whether that's staff or just because you're there, because, you know, your family was there, or, you know, you've got an ancestor with the oil painting on the wall. And it is dangerous, isn't it? Because it means that if we don't have diversity, then we don't have the best decisions, and it means that inequalities persist, and they're some things we need to take really, really seriously. It's interesting that you're talking about allyship, because we're hearing that word more often. I wonder what other people, other panel members think about that. How do allyship and leadership go together?
I was thinking about this, Catherine. About it, I don't think you can be a leader without allyship. I think they're so intrinsically linked together, particularly if you want to address health inequalities, which for me kind of underpins everyone who is within the health and care system. The ultimate goal, you know, you go into the profession because you want to help people, so therefore you do want to reduce and address those health inequalities. And the only way to, I think, meaningfully do that is through allyship. And I'm thinking about some of the work that I'm leading, and we hear this, you know, this is really important to our junior colleagues, that they feel that they're a part of a community that they're serving. They really understand kind of what are the problems, but also that they can, you know, partner with those marginalized groups to improve things. Language is really important as well. And I'm interested to actually hear what the other panelists think, because I'm trying to distinguish between allyship and advocacy, which I think are quite similar, but allyship, there's a difference in the power dynamic, I think, because it is truly about partnership, whereas with advocacy, maybe there is a different kind of power dynamic there going on, where perhaps the advocate who's advocating on behalf of those groups or individuals kind of has more of the power, whereas with allyship, that's really about listening first and foremost, but then empowering you know, those groups or those individuals to have a space or where they can kind of, their voice can be heard. But yeah, interested to see what Emma and thinks and the rest of the panel.
So for me, I think I come to this from a sort of personal perspective, but also sort of observing sort of the journey my organisation's been on sort of for the last couple of years, and I think it's the starting point is you don't know what you don't know. So come approach this with a learning mindset, and both for yourself, but actually supporting others to do that as well. So so just to give you a sort of a practical example, in my organisation, we've created these little sort of 45-minute, hour-long sessions called Feed Your Mind, kind of a lunch and learn sort of session. And we're inviting speakers, and the sessions have been going down really, really well with colleagues and with trustees. And I don't think any of my colleagues would necessarily have sort of been sort of courageous enough, if I'm honest, to sort of say, oh, I feel I've got a learning and development need here. But actually they have really enjoyed listening to other people, and I've had so many messages and emails afterwards and conversations afterwards of these kind of takeaway learning sort of light bulb moments. And so for me as a leader, it's creating a safe space where we can, learn together, and from that place we can begin to be allies. So from that place of learning and understanding, then we can listen, we can develop our own understanding. But then, just touching what Tarina says, we can begin to create space for other people and amplify their voices. So we don't have to speak on their behalf. We just have to understand and recognise the importance of what those people have to say, and being supportive of that. So yeah, that's hopefully a useful example of just putting it into practice in a charity in Sheffield, that's doing a bit of good work.
It's interesting. So there's a lot that's come through together here about sort of coming alongside people and listening. And earlier on, people's responses in the chat saying it's about respect and it's about listening. And I think, Truma, you mentioned that curiosity. Going back to what you were talking about, Clinton, about kind of like really needing to accept that inequalities exist. How, do you want to say a little bit more about what people can do about it? Also what you want leaders to take away, for example, from today's call?
Okay. For me, when we're talking about, just to come to the point of allyship, I just want to talk to that space. It's about allies creating opportunities to hear the most marginalised voice and creating space for the uncomfortable conversations. That's for me. But around equality, diversity and inclusion equals well-being for me. And to get well-being, there are three challenges, I believe. The first one is we have to learn to live with the planet. The second is we have to learn to live with each other. And then the third, we have to learn to care about each other. And those connections will help not to leave anyone behind. That's, and that's quite simple, but hard to do, because you have to let go of power, step back and create that the space. That's what good leaders do. They create the conditions for this to flourish.
And when we talk about personalised care, creating the space to talk to people and communities, but you're talking about everything here, aren't you? So it's those uncomfortable conversations with our workforce, with our staff about, that allow people the opportunity to be vulnerable and to learn together. I love that, Clinton. You'll have to repeat those 3 things in a minute, and hopefully Rosie can stick them in the chat or something. I'll takeaways there. Tarima, do you want to say anything more about what you're hoping people would take away?
So for me, Clinton's touched upon it. So this idea about being vulnerable, I think if you're in any kind of leadership role or you have any, you know, degree of influence, in fact, it's all of our responsibility to not conform. So my sort of takeaways that personalized leadership requires a lot of courage, and also to really stay true to yourself. So be authentic. And I, you know, I've caught myself out of falling into the trap of conformity. So I think, you know, as Emma's mentioned, if you find yourself in a room, which I have, you know, with all people who look the same, and maybe I'm the only woman in that room, or I'm the only person from a kind of ethnic minority background, and this is somewhere where key decisions are being made, or there, you know, if you like, the heavyweights of the health and care leaders, actually, is it enough to kind of feel, okay, I'm grateful to be in that room and I feel privileged that I'm able to bring some diversity and a voice? Or actually, do you have to be quite courageous and hold yourself to account? And in my view, it's like, how do I hold myself account to my own moral imperative, which is actually that it's not good enough to just kind of be grateful that you're in that room. Actually, you do have to challenge, you do have to kind of push for more, and actually ask yourself, so what am I actively doing to change that? How am I actively bringing more diversity into that room? And how in 1 to 2 years, you know, could we have where all those key decision makers hopefully maybe look a bit more like me, but more importantly, look completely different to one another.
Thank you. Emma?
So I'll just sort of extend what Tarima was saying. So for me, it is about being yourself, you know, bringing your whole self to your leadership role, you know, not leaving, you know, the key bits about you at the door when you suddenly, you know, take on the job title or you go into the meeting. So, you know, I can speak, you know, from my own lived experience. I'm the daughter of 2 teenage parents. You know, I was born in the most deprived area of Sheffield. My first house was a 7th floor flat of a tower block, and you know, I'm a family carer. I have been from a young age, and I never had people, I never saw people like me. I never heard those descriptions, you know, in leaders that, you know, that I've had around me through my career. So I feel kind of responsible to show up fully, or, you know, responsibilities to show up fully, to actually be that role model that I never had. And I must say that, you know, I will sing the praises of this national programme, because the breakthrough moment for me in my career was the national programme, and realising that all of those fundamental formative aspects of myself are what makes me who I am, and what, you know, and shapes my value base, and that comes through in my leadership style. So for many years I tried to assimilate, you know, to the people in that room, you know, those photographs on that wall, but actually, 1, it's boring, 2, it's hard work, and 3, that is not showing up and challenging, you know, and bringing a diverse perspective. That is just trying to be, you know, more of the same. So I would recommend, you know, my takeaway point to everyone in this session is, you know, show up as yourself, understand yourself well and what motivates you, and show that diversity from your own lived experience.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much, the three of you. So there's been some really interesting stuff in the chat. I think we've probably got time for a couple of questions. So I'm going to go to Julie or Lindsay. Are there any questions you think could be helpfully answered in the chat right now? I found it. I was scrolling, I couldn't find it, so I was calling on you, but I have. There's one here which is, how do we tackle these important issues with time constraints and everyday pressures? So any advice you'd like to answer that question?
Yeah, I think with all these, you know, resource, so time constraints and pressures, those will always be there. It's about how we prioritize and what's important. So again, it's about, you know, it comes back to what Emma says, what are your values? So if a leader, you know, your values are about diversity, then that's a priority, and actually you make time.
And it really is as simple as that. You know, there is always a long to-do list, there is always time pressures, there is always a report that you've got to finish, or you know, something that you've got to prepare for the next day. But I would always say, if you ask people to just pause for a moment and go back to those values, and also recognize that other people will be observing, not necessarily, you know, on purpose, but subtly, where you devote your time and energy. So if you want to create those conditions that we've talked about all through this session, then being able to, you know, to put your time and energy and also your enthusiasm and your, you know, your hope into these areas of, you know, into this area, then other people will follow suit. You know, you're almost giving people permission to see this as a priority because you do. So yeah, it's a case of making the time because it's important.
Thank you. I wonder if, just to sum up, Clinton, you could just tell us your takeaways again.
My three takeaways basically, we have to learn to live with the planet. The second is learn to live with each other. And the third is learning to care about each other and those connected, so no one is left behind.
Thank you, Clinton. That was brilliant. Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed speaking to you. I could have done it all afternoon. But what we do now is we put people into breakout rooms. So it enables them to get a chance to reflect on what they've heard and really think about what it means to them as leaders, because we really hope that by attending these masterclasses and having a bit of insight and reflection, people go away and do something different. You know, we're here to try and enable change to happen. So Christy, do you want to just introduce the breakout room discussions? Thank you.
Yeah, gosh, that was so wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you, and really, really fabulous. And how on earth was that half an hour? It was wonderful. Thank you, Molly. Can I have those slides? There we go. Okay, all right. So, gosh, I'm sure that you all took away a lot from that. I know I certainly did. So we're going to go into breakout rooms, as Catherine said. It will be completely random. We're very lucky with Zoom. It does do that random thing. So here are some guidelines about how we are going to work well together. So please do keep your cameras on and participate as much as possible, as it helps you and others to connect and learn. If you can't put your camera on for any reason, then if you can just explain that to your group members, that would be really good. You may have one of us in the room with you. It is random, so you may not, but if you don't need to worry about that. You can just self-organize. Introduce yourselves to each other, goes without saying, doesn't it? Agree confidentiality between you, and make sure that everyone has a chance to contribute. If you are somebody that is a quieter person and you like to listen, then that's great. If you're somebody that likes to speak more, then that's great too. But just in the interests of diversity, let's just make sure that everybody can show up and be how they need to be and get what they need from the conversation. So I do believe that we have some questions here, do we, Rosie, Molly? Where are they? I'm sure they're there. Okay, so a couple of questions for discussion. So the first one then is, what is the link for you between personalised care and personalised leadership for wellbeing, equality and inclusion? So you've heard from our three fabulous panellists. What's the link for you? And then what do you need to do differently or more of to become a personalised leader? It might also be less of, so it might be differently, more of, or less of course, to become a personalised leader. So what I suggest you do is take a picture of those questions. I know that they'll be in the breakout room chat as well, but take a picture so that you know what the questions are and enjoy. So I think I made a mistake at the beginning. I said we were finishing at 4:30. That's something that I'm doing tomorrow. It's not 4:30, it's 5 o'clock. So we've got plenty of time for this. Rosie, if we could bring people back for 1:45, that would be fabulous, and just give everybody, I don't know, maybe a 5-minute warning. So Rosie, over to you to work your Zoom magic, and I'll see you all back here at 1:45.
I hope you had a really great discussion. Lots of good discussion in the group that I was in, which was I've got to say it was the speakers, so we did carry on with the conversation we were having, but really, really interesting. Just wondering what feedback you've got really. So stick in the chat. Thinking about the first question, then the link for you between personalised care and personalised leadership. You know, what did you make of that question? So just sort of like put some thoughts in the chat, and we've probably got time for me to kind of pick one or two people to unmute as well. So let's see what you've got to say. I can see lots of people typing. Nothing's come through for me yet.
There's quite a few themes coming through, Catherine, now about person-centred relationships, treating people as individuals. We've got Lorraine Charlton is being professionally curious, taking a leap of faith. We've got Susanna Slattery, communication is key.
I wonder if Joe, you'd like to say something about what you wrote there. Hadn't realised I was not bringing my authentic self to work until you worked for an information where they did. Could you say a little bit about that? Feel free to unmute. I think Rosie will have to give you the power though to do that. There we go.
Yeah, I have. Thank you, Catherine. And yeah, we sort of spoke about it in our group. I've worked for the NHS for 34 years in June, and worked in an array of different areas. And I started with Solent about a year ago, and I hadn't realised until I started at Solent that actually I hadn't been utilising my authentic self at work. And that hadn't been a trait that I'd seen in my colleagues or how I had witnessed what had happened. And it's really, really interesting thinking back, because I thought, you know, so with my colleagues in my room, yes, we did, you know, we talked, we all knew about what was going on, what have you. But actually out and about, having conversations, working with colleagues across different organisations, working with partners, etc. Since going to Solent, I learned very quickly from my own boss and seeing how she managed meetings, how things worked, how seeing meetings with our community partners, etc. worked, that actually it was okay. And actually it was welcomed, and actually the benefits of it, the benefits of just people, you know, seeing the real me, and actually, you know, that just added to me, not detracted. You know, people knowing that, you know, my friends and what have you, my immediate colleagues knew I've got an autistic son, that actually that did impact me quite negatively at a board meeting a couple of years ago when my organisation was talking about cutting autism services. And what most of the people around that table didn't know is those figures they were talking about, one of them was my son. And none of them in that room knew apart from one person. And that person knew because I made excuses and went to the bathroom, but I couldn't contain my tears. And I'm a nurse, you put your armour on, you get ready for, whatever you need to do. And that's the one day I could not contain myself because actually what they were talking about included my son. And, that is really, really hard. But what I found over the last year, that actually the wealth that has come for me being my authentic self, I just think, my God, if I'd done this years ago, how much more would I have had? How much, the greater experience I would have had, the support that I could have given to others, it's unfathomable. Just amazing.
But you're there now, and how wonderful.
Absolutely.
So much in what you said there, Jo. So the idea that your manager is modelling it and it gives permission for others to do it. So it's exactly what I think was coming through from the panel.
Yeah.
But also that I'm really getting sort of like the hairs on the back of my neck coming up here. This idea of openness, possibility, opportunity. I think Clinton talked about opportunity that comes from just here, including more people. So wow, what a great, I'm so glad you've had that experience. So I wonder if Alison, you want to say something. You've put in the chat here, COVID has given us an opportunity to consider how to reach people, how to do things differently. Would you like to expand on that? Feel free to unmute yourself and Rosie will allow you to do that. Alison Bourne.
Right, okay. Oh,
there you go. Yes, you're with us.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, I was just thinking, we talked a bit about it in our group about the fact that because we have had to do things differently during COVID, so lots of the barriers that have come up before, like, oh, we can't possibly do that without it going through like 25 committees and, no, we've always done it this way and we've always going to do it that way. And I wouldn't wish COVID, I wouldn't wish a pandemic on anybody, but looking at what the silver linings to that very dark cloud are, I think, it's given us the opportunity to say, well, do you know what? We don't have to necessarily be, at this meeting, or we don't necessarily need to work in a certain way. How else can we do things creatively? And I think looking at how we can do our work creatively also has allowed us to look at how we can look at services creatively. Okay, so we can't run a day centre as is, a physical day centre. How can we provide things for people and meet needs in a different way? So, and I think we've definitely got an opportunity here, and I wouldn't want to lose some of that.
Yeah, and if you were at the last masterclass, Michael West was talking a little bit about that kind of lessons from the pandemic, and it's kind of the things that have kept people going and the things that will continue to sustain us are those human qualities and that listening and respect for others, and particularly when you've got frontline staff in all parts of health, social care and beyond, of course. There's people from housing on this call, I know, really stretched up against it, and in the voluntary sector, of course. But we have to kind of listen to those people about how we move into recovery. So recovery is about what we all want for the future, and it's not just a set of getting back to business as usual. There needs to be a new business as usual. So probably got time for one more comment. So there was something in here about cross-boundary working. Lindsay or Julie, I don't know if you can help me pick that out.
Just having a look now.
If that was you, do feel free to put your hand up here. So something about kind of, yeah, oh, it was Alison, it was you again. I'll just say what you put in the chat here. Understand where people are coming from, especially with the difference between health and social care. So I was thinking here about, that idea about we move beyond our initial our boundaries and kind of and being more open to kind of like learning, how to do things differently, etc. I don't know, Kevin, you've talked about a little bit about voluntary community sector. I wonder if you want to say something about what, you know, a little bit more about what you mean there.
Absolutely. Basically, I see that that without certainly post the pandemic and what have you, without strengthening, supporting, building our voluntary community faith and social enterprise sector, then I don't see how we're going to get through it. I really don't see how we're going to get through it, because, you know, there is a backlog of need, and that people need support, some support through that, and it's how we can recommission integrated care in a way, and it's of course joined up as well, so that basically when you put, I'm looking forward to integrated budgets. Basically, that's my be all and end all to it, and I really am struggling to see how we're going to get through this one without actually seeing that. And we have some great examples in our group of how, you know, how you have to fight to get something different to the commissioned product, and the difference it makes when you do. So part of that was you know, leap of faith, do it, and then get the evidence to support it afterwards. Really.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Sometimes you just have to be brave, don't you? If you want some evidence, I'm going to do a bit of terrible self-publicity now, but I think you will hopefully find it useful. So I had an article published in BMJ Leader last week. We'll send you the newsletter with that in there, but it actually picks out quite a lot of the evidence for personalised care and for working with communities in co-production, and links that with personalised leadership. So hopefully that's a bit of helpful, adds to your evidence.
Squaring the circle.
Exactly.
Circling the square.
And yeah, I'm not really all that one for, you know, boasting, but it was my first article, so I am quite proud of it. And a few people have said to me, no, it is important for the cause, so that's why I'm saying it. It's not about self-publicity at all. Brilliant. Thank you so much for those comments, and for all of your really, really intelligent, thoughtful reflections. It's so useful. I wonder if we can just go to it. We'd like to do a little bit of evaluation and monitoring at the end, don't we? So Molly's got a few questions, and I just wonder if you wouldn't mind sticking these in the chat. So if you could put in your main takeaway from today, so one thing you've learned or taking away. So just stick your answers to that in the chat. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. And the second question is, what are you going to do next? So what are you going to do with this? What will change for you? And the last question, so this is the last one, is on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in applying the principles of personalised care to your leadership in pursuit of well-being, equality and inclusion? So what's your confidence level? So it sounds like you're really confident. That's really, really good, because we were going to ask you how committed are you, and we thought you probably are very committed, but confidence is the thing that will get you there. So I commend you. Thank you very much. I'm doing a little bit of fiddling here in the background, see if I can actually post the link to that paper in there, because sometimes it's helpful to just have it there, isn't it, rather than think about accessing something later. So let me just put this in here. It's the link to the paper. Do let me know what you think about that. And then we have got an evaluation form for you, which we'd be really grateful if you fill in. So it's the same old thing. It's a Google form, same old questions as before. We're putting together an evaluation report for all of our online masterclass at the moment, which I'm taking to my board next month. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do some more of this. And I think some of the offerings that may be coming your way might be about recovery, what in the NHS is termed recovery, personalised leadership for recovery. and we'll probably be doing some more stuff around inclusion and equalities as well. But do, in that form, let us know what else you'd like to see, because we're here to help and enable you to go forth and really make a difference around personalised care. So whatever you think you would be useful, we'll try and find a way of making that happen for you. I just want to say thank you to all of you, and a massive thank you to my team as well, my team in NHS England, and this amazing team that we've got together of leadership specialists, people with lived experience, the amazing speakers we've had today. Thank you so much, guys. You're amazing. But what a terrific bunch of people. Emma said, how do we do it so slickly? And I said, it's about the diversity of our group. And Christy said as well, didn't you, Christy? There are many of us. It's not on one set of shoulders, it's on many shoulders. And we've achieved more together than we could do on our own. So hopefully you've got out a lot of these masterclasses. You'll tell us so in the evaluation. If there's something you didn't like, also tell us that. But I wish you all the best in your leadership journey, and please stay in touch. We will have regional programmes, more in-depth programmes, another round of action learning sets this year, a special cohort aimed at young people under 25, so I'm not allowed in it, but I'm sure there are colleagues that will be. And also a national programme, which we're hoping will be able to be at least partly face-to-face, which will be kicking off in the autumn. So please stay in touch, and thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your lovely comments.